Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard, for this Health Suppliers segment. Our guest is Meynadier. She's from EOS Imaging, and she's here today to talk about EOS Imaging. They're a medical company that revolutionized the treatment continuum for the most common osteoarticular conditions, hip, knee, spinal conditions, and associated orthopedic surgeries. And she's here today to talk about her company, its involvement in the medical community, and the future of EOS. Welcome to the program, Marie.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you for joining us. Now, EOS Imaging, talk a little bit about your background and how you became involved with EOS Imaging.
That would be a long story. My own background is scientific, and I got involved with that project from an incredible meeting with a Nobel Prize in Physics named Charles Pike, Nobel Prize in 92, and he had actually invented a technology for detecting radiation with extremely low quantity of radiation. Mm-hmm. And years after that, and after meeting him, I started developing EOS Imaging, in which we have put that technology at work to do medical images, specializing in bone images. Mm-hmm. And we've added more technologies to it. So you see, EOS, the equipment, which is our flagship product, is really not only a low-dose imaging modality, but it also does 2- and 3-dimensional imaging of the bones and a number of other things.
Now,
so that took a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. Before EOS Imaging, you were with a startup, I do believe, Biospace Labs?
Right, absolutely. Well, before that, I was doing microelectronics, but I did start a first company in what is called preclinical imaging, which is the imaging that you do for pharmaceutical drug development.
Okay. As far as other exams, what is the biggest differentiating factor when it comes to EOS as opposed to some of the other systems?
We'll see what a patient and a doctor need from an exam for an osteoarticular condition, in particular in the light of a potential surgery, orthopedic surgery of the spine, of the hip, or the knee, is to try to understand as well as possible the structure, the organization of the bones and how that can be corrected. That takes X-rays to get the best information, and obviously that is irradiating. Mm-hmm. So the first thing we are doing with EOS is to cut down the dose by as much as 85% and even more for some pediatric exams. So we bring the dose to much closer to what I would call an environmental dose, the dose of natural radiation. Mm-hmm. The second thing, once you have done those exams with that low dose, is not to stop at having a 2-dimensional exam like a standard radiography would be today, mm-hmm. Because bones are 3-dimensional, and a surgeon or a therapist need to understand the bone in 3D as they are and measure them in 3D as they are, and all of that in the weight-bearing position. So what we have developed is a capacity from having just 2-dimensional images, to bring to the surgeon or the doctor a 3D image of the skeleton, which is extremely helpful in both understanding but also measuring and planning. The third is that bone pathologies are very, our bone system is a holistic system. You can't think of one bone without thinking of the other bones around. So the joints need to be replaced in the context of a global skeletal position and alignment. The global alignment of the patient is extremely important. Mm-hmm. And so for the surgeon, that means that you can't just image a joint. You need to image the whole patient or a large part of the patient to be able to understand the compensation mechanisms between a spine, a hip, a knee, potentially an ankle. And so the third value that EOS has is obviously to bring to have those extremely large size images, full body images, from which the surgeon can understand the patient condition.
Would you say, in your opinion, that this technology is so efficient and so much better that there's no room for, resistance to change when it comes to presenting this to some of our more staid and tried and true physicians?
Well, as any other medical technology, it always takes a little time to come to the market, just because that's how medicine works. I mean, we're not talking iPhones here; we're talking sizable equipment. But to answer your question, yes, I mean, I think that the very vast majority, not to say all of the surgeons that we discuss with, are convinced that seeing without damage or risk to the patient, seeing a weight-bearing patient in 3 dimension and seeing it globally the patients are three extremely critical features for their practice and doing a better job.
What type of patient is the best candidate for this technology?
Well, what our units are, I mean, the patients that are examined in our units are mostly, I mean, osteoarticular patients, which are patients with arthritis, meaning mostly, let's say, aging patients, although you have some cases of earlier pathologies, as well as young patients with deformative conditions. Essentially, the human being has two key moments for bone conditions: the growth, which is essentially the teenagers, and then the aging, in which the bones and the joints are aging, more degenerative, and with conditions that usually lead all the way to surgery.
When a facility opts to go with EOS imaging, are we talking about a full-scale replacement of their current methodology, or can they pick and choose which technology they would like to use with EOS imaging supplying all of it?
In medical imaging, there has never been one technology killing everyone else or killing another one. What happens is that typically take MRI. When MRI arrived, it got retained for a lot of very good information for some exams that it does really well, yet CT is still here. It's the same with EOS. EOS does perfectly exams, radiographic exams, into the 3D of the actual skeleton. I mean, the skeleton, the bones that are in between the head and the toes. That doesn't mean that you will never need a CT or never need an MRI. I mean, you need an MRI to look at soft tissues, for instance, and pathology of the wrist will be better analyzed with another unit than with an EOS, which is really intended for large size actual skeleton exams.
Is this approved for use worldwide?
I would say yes, pretty much. We have approval in the U.S. FDA approval. We have the CE mark, and we are approved in most large markets, including more recently China. So the company is now rolling down, its deployment in all those areas.
So there are a few areas where it is either not approved or simply not available due to logistics or something like that. Are there any strategies currently in the works to make EOS imaging available across the entire planet?
Yes, we are rolling down a very aggressive commercialization plan. Obviously, we started with Europe, Middle East, Africa, EMEA as our first zone, and are growing extremely fast in North America, and we have entered Asia Pacific and are starting our deployment there. That's obviously, I mean, we'll eventually hope to be absolutely worldwide and have every patient in the world have an EOS next to him or her. It takes a little time just to reach out some specific regions. It's not necessarily a regulatory issue, but more a means and focus issue for a small-sized company.
Have you noticed that the cost of this equipment, is it something that regular everyday patients who need this type of imaging, is it something that they can afford, especially if they have Medicaid, Medicare, things of that nature?
Well, the equipment goes by Medicare, Medicaid, and standard reimbursement codes, so there's no barrier for patients to it. As orthopedic care is more and more focused to centers that specialize and have large volumes, I mean, obviously, this is where they will find an EOS.
How long has this technology actually been in use?
We really started sampling the few first sites in 2008, but it was extremely initial, and we had only part of the solution. We really started more aggressively deploying the technology and the product from 2012 on, and we are seeing today a very strong increase as it gets to be better known and starts to make its way as a standard of care in orthopedics.
Do you see maybe some military applications in the future, and especially with here in the United States with NASA recruiting for future Mars missions, do you have anything on the table as far as imaging outside our atmosphere?
Well, not yet. No, we'd be happy to take care to start with vets, people in the armed forces that do suffer some osteoarticular injuries and need care to their joints. That would be our next step, I guess, before we start thinking about outer worlds.
Are there mobile versions that could be possibly used?
Not today.
Okay.
Not today.
And where can our listeners go and get more information about EOS Imaging?
Patients can go to our site, at our website, of course, as well as the user hospital websites in the U.S. We have a locator that helps patients find the unit closest to them. That would be probably the easiest route. And referral by their doctors, obviously.
And that website is www.eos-imaging.com. It's been great having you in studio today with us, Marie.
Same here. Thanks a lot.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard, on this Health Suppliers segment of the show. We've been in studio today with Ms. Marie Meynadier. She's CEO of EOS Imaging, discussing the future of EOS Imaging as it pertains to possible military applications and maybe even joining a space program in the future. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm, and you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes.